Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Now, I remember going to IMAX 3D for this thing when this first came out in theaters and being wowed by it. Is it as good as I remember? Let's get into the movie. At 600 kilometers from planet Earth, we get some gorgeous shots, in space as we follow astronauts Dr. Ryan Stone, played by Sandra Bullock, and Matt Kowalski, played by George Clooney, reporting to Mission Control in Houston, Texas, who's surprisingly voiced by Ed Harris, of all people, as Ryan and Matt are attached to the rocket they're to work on as a mission in space. As they're close to planet Earth, and the cinematography is excellent in this movie. As this may be the best thing about the movie, but don't get me wrong, I like the presence of Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, and I like their characters as they're good in this movie. Mission Control tells Ryan and Matt to abort the mission as a space storm is heading towards them like a bat out of hell, and it comes as it is gone, and Ryan spins too much until eventually she detaches herself from the rocket and she spins around and around and around and she can't breathe. And the movie gets very intense as she's further from planet Earth, and Matt calls for Ryan and flashes her flashlight so he can find her, and eventually catches up and grabs Ryan, and they attach to each other, and Ryan goes wherever Matt goes. And that's when we get the PG-13 rating F bomb saying by Ryan. And thank goodness this movie is 90 minutes long. If it were longer, it would get pretty tedious after a while. Matt and Ryan grab a thing from space and sees outside of their crew members is dead, and bump into a rocket and see another dead crew member, as the visual effects in space is very spectacular. And there's a damn good reason it won Best Visual Effects Oscar in the year of 2014. And Matt admires the sunrise on planet Earth, which looks gorgeous. And if this was on 4K Blu-ray, which right now it's not, but when it does come, I'll be the first to get the 4K Blu-ray as Matt tries to get to know Ryan. And we learn she's from Illinois, and she had a daughter who was unfortunately killed when she was 4 years old. And the score was very well done. They try to land on the space station, and Ryan grabs a ladder, but Matt accidentally hits her, and they detach and get split up as she grabs the rope, and the rope pulls Matt loose, and Matt doesn't have a choice but to let go of the rope and fly away from Ryan. And Matt speaks with Ryan, talks with Matt for the last time, and he orders her to go into the space station, and Matt tries to talk to Ryan while he says in the final sunrise, and I guess dies off screen, and she gets inside the space station, as the sound effects are great in this, as I believe the heart beating at one point, as you can hear the rockets crash in your imagination, which is brilliant. Ryan takes off the space suit, and one thing occurred to me as Sandra Bullock's hair wasn't floating, as that didn't feel a little bit unrealistic, but this is just a minor problem. While Ryan tries to call for Matt, but at some point, there's a fire in the space station, and it escapes by going into an escape pod, and reads how to control it, and she doesn't almost get out of the space station, but her parachute gets stuck on it, and Ryan's escape pod gets stuck on the space station for a while. And I was on the edge of my seat for most of the movie. It's that intense. Ryan tries to detach the parachute from the rocket, and the space station, and another meteor storm comes in and attacks the space station and blows it to half to hell, and gets back into the escape pod by saying she hates space, and sets her alarm on her watch for 90 minutes, like Matt suggested earlier in the film. And Ryan tries to go to the Chinese space station and almost tries to communicate with them as she tries to push a button, and it doesn't work, and she violently overreacts to it. And we see the shot of Antarctica, which is a beautiful shot, while Ryan communicates with the Chinese space station, and then they laugh and talk about dogs for a brief second and howl like one, as well as her babies, and that scene was a bit tedious, but not too tedious. Ryan falls asleep and dreams of Matt coming in the escape pod as he opens the escape pod and manages to come in and sits down, and here's how I knew it was a dream, because She survived space, but now it doesn't matter because it was just a damn dream. While Matt explains to Ryan how she can arrive to Earth or stay in space, as she wakes up and does what Matt suggested to her in the dream and do the landing on Earth, and Ryan tells Matt to give her daughter a message to her from heaven, which was sweet and that was great acting by Sandra Bullock. Ryan decides to go home and flies in space with the fire extinguisher and gets to the space station in some kind and gets inside it before she can land the space station, and it sounds the alarm as well and tries to land it on Earth and contacts mission control back at Houston, but they don't respond until she gets closer to the ground, and she gets closer and closer to the ground and on Earth, I mean. And when she's on the ground, she's in the water and on a lake and gets out of the space station and swims towards land and is happy to be back on the ground as she waits for NASA to come to her for the rescue. And the climax was super intense, but I was super glad she made it out. Sadly, not George Clooney. Didn't make it out, but what did I think of the movie? Let's get to the rating and find out. I'll give this movie a 8.6 out of 10. The cinematography is the best thing about the movie, in my opinion, but don't get me wrong. I like the presence of Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, and I like their characters as they're good in this movie as it gets intense at times. And I was worried if Sandra Bullock was or was not going to survive the damn movie, but spoiler alert, George Clooney does die in this movie, which made me sad when that happened. Thank goodness this movie was 90 minutes long, because if it went on a little bit longer, it would have been tedious after a while. And there's a reason this won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects of the year 2014, as it obviously looks gorgeous and the score was well done, as well as the sound effects are great in this, as you can hear the rockets crash in your imagination, which is brilliant. There's a great reason director Alfonso Cuarón won the best director at the Oscars in 2014. Not Best Picture, though, shockingly, as he did an amazing job with the movie, and there were minor problems while I'm giving this movie a solid recommendation, as the visuals were great and the acting was good, but the story was intense, and I was on the edge of my seat for most of the movie, and it's a stunningly beautiful film with survival skills. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review, and until then, let's fly in space!